Not here. They think they're the bee's knees here. They look at those mucky bastards next door in the West Midlands and strut like peacocks. They'd see DCI Jordan like a prize pigeon coming home to the loft where she belongs."
Very poetic. Tony sipped his beer, savouring the bitter edge of the hops.
"But that's not how your DCI Patterson sees it?" Ambrose demolished most of his pint while he worked out his response. Tony was accustomed to waiting. It was a technique that worked equally well at work or at play. He'd never figured out why the people he dealt with were called patients when he was the one who had to exert all the patience. Nobody who wanted to be a competent clinical psychologist could afford to show too much eagerness when it came to seeking answers. "It's hard for him," Ambrose said at last. "It's harsh, knowing you've been passed over because you're the second best. So he has to come up with something that makes him feel better about himself."
"And what's he come up with?"
Ambrose lowered his head. In the dim light of the pub, his dark skin turned him into a pool of shadow. "He's mouthing off about her motives for moving, like she doesn't give a toss about West Mercia. She's just following you, now you've inherited your big house and decided to shake the dust of Bradfield from your heels." It wasn't his place to defend Carol Jordan's choices, but saying nothing wasn't an option either. Silence would reinforce Patterson's bitter analysis. The least Tony could do was to give Ambrose an alternative to put forward in the canteen and the squad room.
"Maybe, but I'm not the reason she's leaving Bradfield. That's office politics, nothing to do with me. She got a new boss, and he didn't think her team was good value for money. She had 3 months to prove him wrong."
Tony shook his head, a rueful smile on his face.
"Hard to see what more she could have done. Nailed a serial killer, cleared up 2 cold case murders, and busted a people trafficking operation that was bringing in kids for the sex trade."
"I'd call that a serious clear-up rate," Ambrose said.
"Not serious enough for James Blake. The 3 months is up, and he's announced that he's breaking up the unit at the end of the month and scattering them through the general CID. She'd already decided she didn't want to be deployed like that, so she knew she was leaving Bradfield. She just didn't know where she was headed. Then this West Mercia job came up, and she didn't even have to change landlords."
Ambrose gave him an amused look and drained his glass. "You're ready for another?"
"I'm still working on this one. But it's my shout," Tony protested as Ambrose headed back to the bar. He caught the glance the young barmaid threw in their direction, a faint frown on her soft features. He imagined they made an odd couple, him and Ambrose. A burly black man with a shaven head and a face like a heavyweight boxer, tie loosened, black suit tight over heavy muscles. Ambrose's formidable presence would have fitted most people's idea of a serious bodyguard. Whereas Tony reckoned he didn't even look capable of guarding his own body, never mind anyone else's. Medium height, slight of build, wirier than he deserved to be, given that his principal exercise came from playing Raymond's Raving Rabbids on his Wii, leather jacket, hooded sweatshirt, black jeans. Over the years, he'd learned that the only thing people remembered about him were his eyes, a startling, sparkling blue, shocking against the paleness of his skin. Ambrose's eyes were memorable too, but only because they hinted at a gentleness apparent nowhere else in his demeanour. Most people missed that, Tony thought, too taken up with the superficial image. He wondered if the barmaid had noticed. Ambrose returned with a fresh pint.
"You off your ale tonight?"
Tony shook his head. "I'm heading back to Bradfield."
Ambrose looked at his watch. "At this time? It's already gone 10 o'clock.
"I know, but there's no traffic this time of night. I can be home in less than 2 hours. I've got patients tomorrow at Bradfield Moor, last appointments before I hand them over to someone I hope will treat them like the damaged messes they are. Going at night's a lot less stressful. Late-night music and empty roads."
Ambrose chuckled. "Sounds like a country music song."